not long ago, I was able to go over to Israel, and I visited and walked through the Holocaust Museum. My wife and I did. And when we were there, which so many other people go there as well, you're just struck with the depravity, the human depravity, and how shocking depiction that you see there of how these ideologies, atheism, whether it's in the form of Nazism or communism or Islamic ideology, which we're talking about now, what do they all have? They have a hatred for Israel, for Jewish people, anti-Semitism. Let's put it in that perspective. And it's an amazing thing. But we all know, as we even started this program talking about Argentina and some of the countries down south who have voted and acknowledged that Hezbollah, an Islamic, ideologically driven entity that has a hatred for Christians and for Jews, designated them terrorist organizations because they know that whereas they may have as an initial target a Jewish synagogue, as an example, it's only a matter of time before they target the government itself. And that's an important part to keep in mind. So whether it's Jews or the entire Judeo-Christian worldview that recognizes a God as creator who makes life sacred and who gives his universal moral law by which society should be governed and freedom exists, all of those things are kind of wrapped up. So if you believe in a Judeo-Christian worldview, then you're really in alignment with Israel. And because this is the connection. So anyone who knows the United States of America knows that our Constitution is built on what? A Judeo-Christian world view. Comes right off the pages of the Old Testament, in particular, the law there. So the effort to be aware of and help to combat anti-Semitism is really an effort to protect and defend freedom. Okay, does that make sense? And our guest here today, E.J. Kimball, is also, in addition to working with Middle East Forum and Center for Secure and Free Society, is also a spokesperson for an entity called Combat Semitism, which has a website at combatsemitism.org. EJ, I've kind of thrown in some of my thoughts about why I think anybody who loves freedom, needs to be concerned about anti-Semitism and be standing together against those who would willfully take life. But what are you doing? Why is it an issue? And what is this organization, combatsemitism.org? Why is it being formed?
Thanks, Sam. Just one clarification. It's combatantisemitism.org. That's the website.
What was I saying? Combat Semitism?
Yes.
Ladies and gentlemen, let me make that very clear. Combat anti-Semitism. I tell you, what a faux pas that was. Okay, EJ, go ahead, please.
So combatantisemitism.org is an initiative that began back in February, sort of at the beginning of the year, with at its core as an online pledge. And I would urge all of your listeners to go on right now to combatantisemitism.org and to sign the pledge. The goal here is to become a global grassroots movement, nonpartisan, which I know in today's age is a shocking word to hear, but the issue of anti-Semitism and combating anti-Semitism cannot be a partisan issue. It has to be nonpartisan. And our goal is to create an army, quite frankly, of millions of people that support, this pledge to combat anti-Semitism and to partner with nonprofit and non-political organizations, aiming to get thousands of these organizations to partner together to combat anti-Semitism with the goal of defeating it. So far, there's over 100,000 individuals who have signed the pledge, over now 140 partner organizations, and that comprises not just Jewish organizations, but Christian organizations, churches, and others, Muslim organizations, and of course non-affiliated organizations, because as you say, those that support freedom should be supporting efforts to combat anti-Semitism. So, the website, combatantisemitism.org, there's a pledge there. The goal here is to mobilize the grassroots and to help amplify the work of other organizations, the partner organizations, in the work that they're doing, and to connect the grassroots to these organizations so that people who want to be active in combating anti-Semitism have a platform. There's a weekly newsletter that profiles news, personal stories, segments from partners, calls to action. Actually just announced a contest, if you go to the site, to solicit content and strategies for fighting anti-Semitism. What is unique here about combatantisemitism.org, there's a couple things. Number one, this is just about anti-Semitism. That is what we are focused on. Number two is we are not trying to recreate what others are doing. We're trying to amplify that work. And number three, and this is most important, in the pledge, anti-Semitism includes anti-Zionism. Those that claim that, well, I'm not anti-Semitic, I'm just anti-Zionist, that, the Zionist movement, Theodore Herzl, I'm against Israel because it's the Zionist. Zionism is inherent within Judaism. It's what Jews yearn for 2,000 years, to return to Jerusalem. That is something inherent. It's part of being a Jew. It's part of the culture. The other important aspect of this pledge is BDS, the Boycott, Divestment, and Sanctions Movement against the Jewish state. That is anti-Semitism. Now, are there individuals who have problems with Israeli policies? Yes. And should people be able to express their disagreements? Of course. That's the sort of society we live in. That's the type of society that should be encouraged around the world. But when that anti-Israel commentary is going after the actual right of the Jewish state to exist, that's when it becomes anti-Semitism. The BDS movement's founding is based on the destruction of the Jewish state. That's what the organization was set up to do. This movement, the BDS movement, seeks to destroy the Jewish state, and that is anti-Semitism.